Chapter 44. I told Jacob about my past, about my rapists, and how I had become what I was. A good portion of that day was spent with him calming me down and trying to get me to relax and lower my guard. Now and then he stopped to ask me if I was still afraid, if I still wanted to fuck him. I told him the truth, that I did. Of course I did. I had made only one proposition the entire conversation. He handled it well. At the end of the day, we parted ways with the decision that he would talk to me the next day. We didn't even get into the writing or work that day. I had a male friend. For the longest time, that word felt weird to me. And he didn't want to sleep with me. I'd never had such a thing. Not really. Not without there being some desire there. And if it wasn't there, it's because they weren't that close. The next day, I spoke to Jacob. Again, my panic was high, mirrored by a severe state of arousal. I calmed down faster that day, but was still quiet and on my guard. By the third day, I started opening up. By the end of the fourth day, there was no fear. I was unaroused, and by the fifth day, there was no panic at all. By the fifth day, Jacob and I were close as two friends could be without being lovers. I think it's called romantic friendship. The kind of friendship where you could sleep in the same bed and not have sex. Something else happened, though, almost at once between us. Something I'm still trying to figure out. We learned that we were strangely comfortable saying anything to each other, anything at all. We could open up and pour our hearts out. I could tell him anything and did, almost anything, a lot more than I'd ever told anyone, even Hosea. He had the same lack of reserve. We flirted, we played with each other, and a good portion of our friendship felt like nothing I'd ever felt before. I wanted to curl in his lap and go to sleep. I wanted his arms around me. I felt like a child around him, and he was some sort of sentinel. I was safe in him. I was safe in his arms, with him. Pat and I weren't done with each other. Far from it. She continued to analyze the mind of a rape survivor while I walked her through the certain events, helping her hone the exact thoughts of a victim, based on my experiences anyway. The mental process, the thoughts, the feelings of guilt, she and I debated over her main character's mental profile and how it differed from mine. I finally reached one point in Pat's book where I could relate to the circumstance perfectly. I was saying things that forced me to confess what I knew Pat already knew. I opened up and told her about my rapes and my views on men. Pat was wonderful, very understanding, and of course she had figured it out. It was in one of those conversations where I explained my views on women. I'm simply not comfortable with women, I said. I never had been. I'm still trying to figure you out, a few other women who I've friended recently. I don't understand how we hit it off so well. Pat's next email began, Elizabeth, I'm a man. I wanted to throw up. Pat and I were close. Granted, not like Jacob and I, but he made it to my inner circle. The error was an honest mistake, and Pat went on to explain that he meant no deceit, and he didn't. He apologized profusely and was sincere about the misunderstanding. If I had known he was male, I already would have been flirting and possibly attempted to proposition him. Like this, with him so close and me caught unaware, I didn't know what to do. I thought back to everything I had said. Everything was online. I assumed Pat was female. I simply assumed it. I had never asked. Pat certainly had no way of knowing what gender I thought he was, and he set me straight the moment I said, "You're female." I started playing back through all my conversations with him. Fear, panic, arousal. But hadn't he already proven he was harmless? I had opened up to him. I had told him everything, and he was male. I wanted Jacob to crawl in his lap and vanish there. I wasn't deceived. This I knew. Pat did not lie or try to trick me. It was a genuine mistake because I had assumed. It is still considered rude to ask one's gender online. Stupid propriety. Simply stupid. I wrote back to Pat and told him it was okay. I wasn't mad or upset. It was my own fault for assuming. Inside, I was scared, unsure. I don't let men in, except Jacob. And here was Pat fully into my circle without the proper preparations. I was slipping. I felt myself sliding back into the realm of my psyche, back to my rooms with no doors. Jacob was my comfort, my go-to, my answer when I felt scared or shaken up. He held my hand and carried me through the rooms with no doors, while Pat and I ventured down the psychological makeup of a rape victim. I had grown cold, methodically. I was shutting down emotionally. Again, I told everything to Hosea, relaying everything back as it happened. But I felt myself slipping. I could get through this. I wasn't feeling any of it. Writing my book was like sliding into one of my worlds. I required little prompting to slip into my 10th century Norway and Ireland. I don't know why it became harder to be in this world than the next. Maybe it was with Tribble's passing. Maybe it was with my rapes revisited. Maybe it was all the research I was doing in Ireland for my book that carried me back to my Irish realm. Maybe it was the online realm I had uncovered through social media. Maybe it was my ever-growing fondness for Jacob. Maybe it was a combination of all these things hitting me at once. Maybe it was Tribble's death, which I was still struggling with. Somewhere between all those realms, I turned and saw my raven.